Well, I'm happy to be joined by August Lamczyk. Thanks for coming in. You've got a lot of great experience to share with us in military, coming back to college, going into the workforce. Now you're back in college, and we're just going to pick your brain a little bit. Tell us a little bit about your military service background first.
Well, I joined delayed entry program back in 1985, which basically you could sign up your junior year in high school. And I think I did it as soon as I turned 17. So I think my mother and father co-signed for me to go in. I left 10 days after graduating high school to beautiful San Diego, California for a lovely stay at Marine Corps Recruit Depot, San Diego, and that was interesting. And you know, started there, went off, and it wasn't guaranteed what your job would be, but I became a basic cartographer, which I learned was a map maker. And basically from there, spent 2 years in California working at the group headquarters, and then also went back and forth to school at Fort Belvoir, Virginia. And then finally I had a year in mainland Japan. And you know, one of the things we did was we went up to Base Camp Mount Fuji and made an obstacle course. We had to survey it out, and that was a good training experience. But then, you know, just a couple years, like last year, I was looking up things on YouTube for some other project and just typed that in, and oh, it's there. And it's there's I guess generations of Marines and anybody up in that area that have done that obstacle course have cursed me in a way. So it was a good experience.
So how long were you active duty, and when did you get out?
It was 4 years. I went in '86 and got out in 1990.
Okay. So did you immediately say, I'm going to take advantage of my GI Bill and I'm going to head off to college now?
I did. I had different plans. I really didn't. I think a lot of veterans experience this, that I wasn't maybe the best student in high school. I was basically majoring in social activities. And so when I went and got out, I luckily had a gal I knew back in Southern Illinois, where I come from, and you know, said I kind of want to go to community college, and there was a Veterans Upward Bound program there that you know, basically they knew I was coming. I mean, this is way before the days of the internet and that. So I was just going to go for one semester and get my $1,200 back, and that it was mine, and that was it. And I was going to somehow get through that. And upon going back to school, I think that experience that maybe we learn at different times in our lives, and I was just ready to learn, and you know, just stuck with it. And it was from that community college, I went off to EIU. So.
Well, we were talking before we started the show about, you know, when you came to college, there wasn't like a veteran service office. There weren't quite the information wasn't quite as readily available as it is today. What was it like? And you actually proposed to the college, hey, you know, I think we kind of need something like this, because it's kind of.
I think the thing was, and it's kind of a credit to the current veterans from the two conflicts, that I think they did kind of boost up what is offered with the new post 9/11 GI Bill. But also colleges, I think, really did take the lead, and EIU's similar with that you know, we're going to have these student veterans returning to campus, and, you know, they do probably need some guidance and some changes. Back then, I mean, I was fortunate at Kaskaskia Community College that they did have a Veterans Upward Bound program, but there wasn't too many of them. I mean, it was just kind of a lucky thing. And then I went to EIU, and it was pretty much the Veterans Financial Aid Advisor, and they did a great job, but their job wasn't really to, you know, kind of integrate them into the college experience. And I think today we really do try to do that and try to help out. It's a foreign environment, you know, it's something very different from what you're used to. And I mean, there is some intimidation, you know, same thing I was going through, where it was like, well, this is really college when you go off to your four-year school compared to the community college experience. So, and then I think also just geographically, you know, it's just different parts of the state, and we're diverse. Right. But it can be intimidating if you're from more of a rural area, I think.
So what do you think are some of those challenges, and you probably experienced them yourself, being a military guy, and now you're a college guy?
Well, I mean, I was talking to a young Marine last year, one of the student veterans, and he said, you know, I really don't fit in with the student body. I mean, I'm 24, and, you know, they're I guess, 21, 22, with some of them, and I'm thinking, well, that's not that big of a gap. But then after I reflected on that, I mean, life experience-wise, I think that young man, just went through a lot more at that point. Not to say that his peers won't do that later, but so I mean, just the feeling of fitting in, can be a little overwhelming, and I think organizations like the Black Knights, which is a student veteran organization, I mean, that really helps, feel a connection with, that you have a common past, but you also have a common future, that you're in school and a common presence, and that you have somebody to talk to that is in a similar situation, and I don't know. Like back then, it just pretty much, I knew one other gentleman who came from the same community college that was a veteran, and we'd kind of hang out and talk and stuff, and then we would expand it, and meet other people. I think one of the problems today that, I know one of the mistakes I made 20 years ago was that I didn't really get involved in any RSOs, and I guess I assumed I knew everything. I was in college after all, and that would have helped immensely. I think just if you have any interest, to go and look and get involved, and that's kind of how you meet people with similar interests.
So you went, you finished your 4-year degree, went out into the work world, and now you're back here at Eastern again, working on master's degree.
Yes.
But you're still involved in the different veterans activities.
Well, I mean, it was kind of a very good feeling to know that they had a veteran service office started up here, and once again, that's a credit to, I think, the current veterans that are young students now. That they recognize the need for that, and I just kind of stopped by one day and talked to Mike Rubel, who was in charge of it, and then it just seemed like I kept kind of coming back, or he'd call me in and get me involved, as well as a couple of the older veterans.
Now, are there is that probably the majority of veterans that are on campus have just come back from combat and are probably in their 20s. Are there very many that are your age that served back in the late 80s, early 90s that are coming back now?
They seem so young at heart. I think there's a handful that, there's one gentleman that's older than me, and then I think there's oddly enough, 2 other Marines who are in different programs where they don't need to, one of them doesn't need to be on campus as much, and I'll see those guys around. But I'd say the majority is the current generation, but it's a big campus.
Yeah.
And some veterans too, I mean, that's the thing that's kind of interesting too about veterans, is some, maybe want to be a part of things like the VFW or AMVETS or something like that, where some of us, I don't know, they don't, and they want to do their own thing. They're done with their service, and they're, grateful for their time they're served and all that, and they're what they did, but want to get on with life and want to have that separate from their current life situation. So I think the majority is the younger ones, the 20-somethings.
Tell us a little bit. We've had some members of the Black Knights. That is a big military organization here on campus, a big part of the history of Eastern's campus. They've been around for a long time. What are some of the things that they do?
The biggest thing I noticed, and I wanted to be involved, but when I talked to Mike Rubel, I was like, I'm older, and some of the leadership things, I don't know if it's really helping me to do that. I think it's good that how it's ran, that the new bunch is running things, but no, the baton was a big thing last year, and that was a major fundraising event, and I think that's I was kind of asked to go in that, and I'm like, well, other folks want to go, I think they should go, but I'll help raise money. And then it just by how everything fell, I did go, and I don't really recommend that for graduate students to just leave towards about a month before finals to go off to New Mexico.
No,
but it was a good life experience.
Explain what that is. That was a recreation of the Baton Memorial Death March.
It was a recreation of the, kind of like an honorary march. I don't know, in gerontology, we learn about memorials and stuff and death and dying, but this is kind of like a living memorial, and not all there's still survivors that are around. What happened was in Baton was, and this is basic history, so I don't know if it's exact.
We won't quote you.
But basically a unit in the Philippines several units got overran, but a big majority of them were from New Mexico, and that was why they have it out at New Mexico, is really to honor those veterans. And I think in years past there was more survivors there, so they were actually at the march and participate in maybe the shorter one or the long one, and it's just kind of like a living memorial for that. And it's 26.2 miles in the beautiful desert of New Mexico, and it wasn't really bad weather that year that we went. It was actually I think it was cooler there than what it was when we left Charleston, but it's still 26.2 miles. So
And that's something that the Black Knights sponsored or coordinated?
The Black Knights raised money to go, and I think it was 4 of us went out there.
Okay.
And I was like second slowest. I walked it and talked to a trainer from Las Cruces, New Mexico, who told me to take it slow. And I just couldn't take it anymore and had to go and start stepping out a little bit. The other folks that went, they ran it, which was, they did. They had pretty good times. I don't know what they are. I'm not going to quote that. So they were waiting for me for several hours.
Okay.
So.
But you made it. Would you do it again?
Oh, yeah. I would, but I mean, I seriously would do it. And I kind of, something like that where if you never did it before, I was like just worried of like, I don't know, passing out or something, from just exhaustion. I mean, it is 26.2 miles, but I'd really rather have other folks go. I mean, I've had my chance and I'm grateful for it, and still would be willing to work to raise money. It's more part of the process. They seem to really emphasize leadership skills with the Knights on how to, just what you want to do, how do you go and raise money if you need to do that, and just coordinate everything. So it is a good learning experience for the veterans.
Well, let's talk a little bit about what EIU is doing. Veteran Services is they're doing workshops called Veterans Integration Series. What's that?
Well, basically, me and Steve Knotts, I'm doing an internship there through the gerontology program, and basically it's from my experience being a student veteran, others, and we try to get feedback immediately about what we're doing. Just try to help the student veterans feel a part of EIU, and just things I really didn't know that were offered. I mean, like I said, 20 years ago, the whole RSO thing was a big surprise. The Student Success Center, all those things that could help get a better student veteran through college. Just let them know, that they're not alone. I think that's also a big feeling where if you have a concern, maybe you're not going to bring it up in that class, but after class, your fellow student veterans might be like, I'm really having a hard time with this, and try to encourage them if they are having a problem. That's not a failing thing. That's just something you recognize that maybe you're not, your math skills aren't as where they should be. Kind of bring it up. Let's work on that. Let's get it, get you through, and assist them in whatever they need.
So how is the program set up? Because this is new for this fall semester.
Well, right now we're doing it 1 hour over. It's Friday at noon upstairs in the student union in the green up room, or they might move us to Arcola, but somewhere up there. We'll be on the lookout. And basically, I've done the first 2 presentations, and now, thank goodness, we're starting to bring in some of the experts on campus that could help. I think today we have Dr. Carrie Johnson from the BGS program, who's worked with adult learners, I think, all her life. She's going to be partially presenting on goals and priorities and how to implement that, do a workshop on that, where I have a presentation on motivation, which I didn't know that word until I went in the military. So it's kind of like, oh, that word. Somehow this run is motivating. I don't understand this. So
we're going to take a look at it in just a minute, but before we leave, I want you to give some advice to, if there's veterans out there, no matter what, if they're recently back from a deployment and they're thinking about college, or if there's someone like you that, is coming back to college at a little, later in life, what advice would you give to them?
I think the thing is to research I think the big thing is a lot of folks go to school, and I think with Dr. Johnson, I did this research, which was not veterans, but they want to go back because they want to get a better job in that. But I think the bigger thing is, on the research we did, that was the initial reason. But then as the college experience happened, it was really something they always wanted to do. And I think that, if you have an inkling, to investigate it, and, if you have questions, maybe you would feel comfortable saying, hey, could I talk to the student Veteran Service Office? I had some questions about going back to school. I think that that they are not unfamiliar with working hard at something to accomplish a goal. It's just a little different in college where it's, an academic setting. And I think several of them have I'm losing my train of thought, but I think the biggest thing is, to be open-minded and accept, where you're at, but where you want to go also. And that school would be a big part of that. And then to get involved would be the biggest thing. And I know a lot of the veterans, there is, people that have families and that, so they're non-traditional students, and, what they're offered on campus, maybe they don't think directly relates to them, but there is organizations like OASIS, which is for non-traditional students, that they could connect with them as well if they have other concerns. So it's not just veterans, there's something at EIU for almost everybody.
And all of our colleges now are offering have Veteran Services Office, a majority of them, and so the services are out there, a lot different than when you came back to college back in the early 90s.
I was going to say, I guess my advice to the student veterans would be that, to go check with the Veterans Service Office and all that they offer. And the biggest problem, I think, for most veterans is filling out the paperwork. I mean, it is a lot of paperwork to get all that moving. Yeah. But then once it does get moving, it's like the next semester, it's not that tough. It's just the initial filling it out and having somebody guide you.
There's people at those campuses that are here to help, that are experts in that. So,
Indeed.
Well, thank you for coming on the show. Good luck to you in your studies. We're going to head now and take a look at some of the Veterans Integration Service series held on the campus at EIU. Thanks for watching Veterans Matters.
One thing I learned in the service was, I used to look at life as like burdens and problems and like, well, we just can't do it. And it doesn't really work that way in the service. It's more like you have challenges, and a challenge is basically just a way to accomplish, is accomplishment in the making. I think that you're going to have to realize that there's going to be challenges, and it's just not going to be something that's a walk in the park, that it is going to take some endeavor. I had a problem with weight when I was in the service, so I hang out with the guys that knew how to kind of keep that under control and how to work out and keep that down. And just like in college, you never should be reluctant to ask for help. I think that's the thing where I thought, well, I don't want to admit this, that I'm having a problem in this course subject. There's resources available. And I think it's also important to remember that this is your college experience and you need to tailor it to meet your needs. Everybody's different at different levels in their education and in different majors. At EIU, when I transferred here, I didn't really know of any student or any instructors that were veterans, but I thought, when I was at community college, there was a couple, and it did kind of help. Like, it always seemed to help first week or second week of class to tell them, by the way, I'm a veteran. Like, be easy on me. Is what I was hoping, and I don't know if that worked or not.
Yeah, Bill, it came from my master's because I got my associate's in the Army, but it would help if they had a yellow ribbon program, because I actually end up paying because I just moved from Fort Bliss, so I am paying the out-of-state tuition, and this kind of hurts. Yeah.
Non-traditional students have the lounge above the union, above the food court there. A student veterans lounge would be nice, somewhere where you can go and there's people you have something in common with, that you can work on your homework in there, or just hang out in between classes or something and meet people and talk to people who have similar experiences to what you have. I was an infantryman. You ever try to turn a resume, NCOER bullets or award points from an infantryman's, career into a civilian job resume?
Yeah.
They give you about a day worth of that on your way out of the Army. that would be something useful here, is helping veterans turn military service and experience into resume points that they could use in the civilian world.
Did you have like military experience that you had to get credit for? Did you try?
I did do that, although I'm going into education, so most of what I ended up with credit for was management and things like that. But really, like, going into education, you know, I'm going to look at all the soldiers I trained and have experience being in front of a classroom teaching. I have experience, you know, doing hands-on training and things like that. And I can turn that into something to put on a resume, but a lot of people going into different jobs may not be able to.
Yeah, yeah. And then I know you're a parent who also has children or kids. You do. Like some that, I don't know, I thought would really kind of help in the process, and we talked about this last week, but, and I don't know how one goes about this, but like, they had like daycare, like on campus, in the sense that, you know, you come in and, not saying that maybe it'd be your primary daycare, but like it's just there as an option. And I don't know if we can do that
I don't
or
know why not, to have the child development lab, I don't know why there couldn't be.
and I think, but I think you said that that was only a
Maybe
couple
it's
hours a
certain
day.
hours in the day,
And that's, you know,
And
but
there's no assistance in the evenings?
I don't believe so.
it's just during the day. Well, and that would benefit non-traditional students in general, not just student veterans, because, I mean,
Sure.
what parent that goes to work during the day and wants to further their education has time to do it in the evening?
Well, and that's it. And it's like, you know, you want to be motivated to go to class, you want to be motivated to learn, but you know, you have these other responsibilities, and it's like, well, you know, gee, it's easy to talk this motivation, but it's like, well, what could be better
Concrete help.
that would help? Yeah.
How many of you have used visualization? Okay, tell us about that. You use it all the time. What does it do for you, Reggie?
Just visualizing the whole time and thinking about, you know, how refreshing it's going to be, and all this time is passing by. You know, eventually one hour tonight, I'll be home, you know, watching TV, reflecting back on my visualization and how I got from 8 o'clock this morning to 8 o'clock at night.
When I was in Iraq, like, I was a sergeant and I would like lead my soldiers in, you know, spin classes because we had those facilities there. And then when I got back, I would go to spin classes and like get right, you know, I would be like, just to learn more and get better. And then like here, I can't, it seems like they teach, like, I want to teach spin, but I don't know the steps in order to do it, or I'm like intimidated by this, you know, this civilian world, or I don't know what it is, but like, it's just something that is like a wall, like you were saying.
It's very difficult to transfer. You go from being one thing, and it's intimidating to be something else. You're talking about fighting in Iraq, and I'm like, really? I mean, that's something I could never do. I could never see myself doing it. So you have to give yourself credit for what you are and what you've accomplished. And look at the other people, and don't put them down, but utilize them as resources. Find out how those people that are doing it here got to that point. Talk with people. Don't be intimidated by them. We're all the same. You have something that I admire so much. All of you do. You served your country. So don't be intimidated by us. And I can't make you feel something. You need to make yourself feel that. But take that step. Utilize your resources. The more you realize that you're significant, and the more you realize that your dreams are doable, the more successful you're going to be.
Hi, I'm Erica Borgren, Iraq veteran and director of the Illinois Department of Veterans Affairs. Our mission is to empower veterans and their families to thrive. We do that by providing long-term care in our veterans' homes, by developing programs to address the mental health, employment, and other challenges veterans face, and by helping veterans navigate the complex system of federal, state, and local resources. Our agency is home to a team of veterans whose sole job is to help other veterans. But we can't do this work alone. We need Illinois veterans to stand up and be counted so we can better understand our veteran community and serve you better. We are calling on all Illinois veterans, even if you've personally transitioned well and aren't in need of any services, to log on to our website to stand up and be counted. You have already stood up to answer the call to service. Now, stand up and be counted to help the entire Illinois veteran community. Visit veterans.illinois.gov.
If you have questions or comments about our show, please email them to the address on the screen or give us a call during regular business hours at 581-5956. Thanks for watching this edition of Veterans Matters.